Runaway Bride in the Seychelles Part 1. Chapter 1, The Dress Doesn't Fit. The silk felt like a noose. Allegra Moreau stood in front of the floor-length mirror in her private suite at the Hotel de Crillon, the morning sun casting golden stripes across the marble. Paris glimmered beyond the windowpanes like a promise she wasn't allowed to keep. Around her, 5 attendants fluttered like anxious butterflies, securing pearl buttons, steaming chiffon, adjusting the yards of imported lace that trailed behind her like a royal veil of surrender. She was supposed to feel like a queen. Instead, she couldn't breathe. Her mother's voice echoed from the corridor. 5 minutes, darling. Your father is waiting. Of course he was. Jacques Moreau, the titan of old money, oil, and intimidation, was a man who made the Pope wait on Christmas Eve. Today, his daughter was marrying his protégé, Lucien Beaumont, to secure a merger that would expand their empire from Paris to Shanghai. It was all a transaction. Allegra was the gilded pen that sealed the contract. The mirror didn't lie. She looked stunning. The gown, custom Dior, ivory silk, hand-stitched diamonds, fit like it was sewn to her bones. But Allegra didn't recognize the woman wearing it. That version of her, with the demure smile and hollow eyes, was someone else's fantasy. Not hers. Not the girl who once jumped off a yacht to escape a dinner party. Not the woman who fell in love with her bodyguard after he saved her life during a kidnapping attempt in Marrakech. Not the version of herself who'd once dreamed of becoming a photojournalist instead of a pawn in a billionaire's game. She swallowed hard. Her hands, manicured into perfect ovals, trembled as she touched the cold diamond at her throat. I can't do this. The thought came suddenly, viciously, like a shark slicing through still water. A knock rattled the door. Allegra. Lucien's voice. Smooth. Confident. A practiced purr wrapped in entitlement. Are you decent, darling? No, she snapped, the first honest word she'd said all week. Panic surged like wildfire. She had to go. Now. One of the attendants, poor innocent Elise, looked up in alarm as Allegra moved toward the mirror again. Mademoiselle, is something wrong? Everything. Everything was wrong. Allegra tore at the diamond necklace first, the clasp snapping. The gems scattered like teeth across the polished floor. Elise gasped. Another woman reached for the veil. Wait, don't. Too late. Allegra kicked off her Louboutins, stumbled out of the suite barefoot, dragging the cathedral-length train of the gown behind her like a ghost. The hallway outside was filled with florists, PR agents, and security, her security. They didn't stop her. She sprinted past a shocked bridesmaid, her cousin Vivienne gasping, "What the hell, Allegra?" Down the grand staircase, still in her dress. People screamed. A waiter dropped a tray. Guests gawked as the bride flew through the lobby like a fever dream. Cameras flashed. The paparazzi, camped outside for days, surged toward the doors. Too bad. Allegra was already out the side entrance, heart pounding like a war drum, feet raw from the cobblestones. She darted through the Place de la Concorde, catching the bottom of her gown on a wrought iron fence, ripping the silk. She didn't stop. She didn't care. Her phone buzzed inside the clutch she'd somehow kept with her. Father, 16 missed calls. Lucien, 11. Unknown number, 1 I can get you out. She froze. The number was unlisted. No name. But somehow, it felt familiar. Another text appeared. Run south. Jets waiting. You've got 30 minutes. Kay. Her heart stopped. No. It couldn't be. Kai. She hadn't seen or heard from Kai Wolfe since he'd saved her life, and vanished, 3 years ago. She'd told herself he was dead, or at least married to someone else in some jungle fortress. But now, with sirens echoing in the distance and her entire life unraveling at the seams, she saw only one way forward. Allegra Moreau, heiress, runaway bride, scandal in heels, hitched her gown over her knees and ran. Toward freedom. Toward the jet. Toward the only man she ever loved. Chapter 2, Boarding Pass to Freedom. Allegra stood barefoot on the edge of the tarmac, silk gown clinging to her legs, the Paris wind slapping her veil like a flag of rebellion. Her pulse hadn't slowed since she bolted from the cathedral. She didn't look back. If she did, she might see her mother fainting into a chaise lounge, or Lucien calling in favors from Interpol. Instead, she looked up. The jet was sleek, matte black, humming like a sleeping panther on the private airstrip outside the city. No logos. No markings. Discreet luxury, the kind you couldn't buy with family money. This wasn't her father's jet. It was his. The staircase hissed downward, and a man in dark aviator sunglasses stood at the top. Not Kai. An assistant, maybe. The man wore a Bluetooth earpiece and moved with military efficiency. "Miss Moreau," he asked, stepping down to greet her. She hesitated. "How do I know you're not here to drag me back to Paris?" He tilted his head, unfazed. "Because Mr. Wolfe doesn't do kidnapping. Only extraction." Mr. Wolfe. The name clanged in her chest like a bell tower. He was alive. The assistant opened the door. "You have 90 seconds before your location is no longer private." Allegra took one last look at the sky behind her. Sirens in the distance. Screams of paparazzi echoing like a mob. Somewhere, her father was shouting into 5 phones. Somewhere, Lucien was swearing bloody vengeance. Somewhere in the chaos of everything she was supposed to be, Allegra chose herself. She ran up the stairs. Inside, the cabin was a vision of shadowed elegance, black leather seats, gold-trimmed walls, and a chilled bottle of champagne already uncorked beside a single crystal glass. Classical music played low in the background. It smelled like money and danger. A voice, crisp and cool, echoed from the intercom. "Miss Moreau. Buckle up. Wheels up in 60 seconds. Kai." She spun around, expecting to see him step from the cockpit. But he didn't appear. He was keeping his distance. Still calling the shots. Still hiding in shadows. The door sealed shut behind her. She didn't exhale until the jet began to move. Allegra collapsed into a seat, silk dress pooling around her like a puddle of rebellion. Her body shook from the adrenaline crash, fingers tangled in her ruined veil. What had she just done? No more inheritance. No more legacy. No more diamond-ringed cage. Good. She grabbed the champagne bottle with trembling hands and drank straight from the top. The plane lifted, slicing into the clouds like a promise. Allegra woke up tangled in a cashmere blanket, the silk gown discarded on the seat beside her like shed skin. The assistant had disappeared. The windows revealed endless turquoise water below, sunlight spilling across the sea like liquid gold. The cockpit door opened with a hiss. And there he was. Kai Wolfe. Taller than she remembered. Leaner. A black button-down shirt rolled at the sleeves, the sharp angles of his jaw even more cutthroat than 3 years ago. No gun. No sunglasses. No smile. Just those same storm grey eyes. She shot to her feet. You. He didn't move. You looked like you needed a ride. Her breath caught. He looked like every forbidden thought she'd ever had. She crossed the space between them in 3 long strides and slapped him hard. You disappeared. I had to. You left without a word. I would have stayed if you asked. Her voice cracked. You were my protector. I was your liability. Silence swallowed them both. She stared at him, every molecule in her body rioting. Where are we going? Kai turned to the window. The Seychelles coast was just visible below, white sand, emerald jungle, villas perched like secrets above the sea. Off the map, he said. Where they can't find you. She swallowed. Why now? He looked at her then, eyes softening just enough to undo her. Because this time, he said, I'm not leaving. Chapter 3, Jungle Heat. The air in the Seychelles tasted like mango and secrets. Allegra stepped off the jet into a haze of late afternoon heat, the sky burning orange and gold behind towering palm fronds. A breeze stirred her now loaned linen blouse, warm against skin that still bore the memory of silk and scandal. Kai hadn't spoken much since they landed. He led her to a private dock where a sleek motorboat awaited, and then piloted it across turquoise waters that shimmered like shattered sapphire. The coastline blurred by untouched beaches, jagged cliffs, dense emerald jungles that spilled into the sea like green waterfalls. They didn't speak. But the silence was deafening. Kai docked at a hidden cove, where a narrow wooden staircase wound up the cliffside. At the top, secluded behind ferns and shadows, stood Villa May, a glass-walled hideaway suspended between treetops. Birds called like flutes from the jungle. A gecko darted across a palm tree. The villa pulsed with silence, electricity, and the illusion of safety. This will be your base, Kai said simply, stepping aside as she climbed the last stair. Allegra took it in slowly, floor-to-ceiling windows, a sprawling deck with an infinity pool that vanished into the ocean, and a canopy bed that looked like it had seen sin. The decker was minimalist. Masculine. Familiar. She turned. This place, it's yours. He didn't deny it. Just gave a low shrug, hands in his pockets, eyes scanning the treetops like a soldier who never forgot where the next bullet might come from. You live here. When I need to disappear. Her lips parted, 1,000 questions clawing for air. How long have you been watching me? He turned those slate-grey eyes on her. Since the moment you put on that engagement ring. Heat flared in her cheeks, and somewhere far deeper. You don't get to say things like that. Why not? Because you left. She moved toward him now, barefoot, defiant. You vanished after Marrakech. You let me believe you were dead. He said nothing. You left me with Lucien, she whispered. With my father. With everything. His voice came low. And you survived them all. Tears threatened to spill, but she blinked them back with venom. You don't get to show up with your jungle villa and your private jet and act like the hero. He took a step closer, slow and sure, and suddenly the villa felt too small. I'm not the hero, Allegra, he murmured. I'm the reason you keep looking over your shoulder. Silence stretched. A bird shrieked from the canopy. Allegra's heart pounded. She turned her back to him, storming toward the sliding glass doors. Fine. I'll stay. But only until I figure out my next move. You're not staying, Kai said behind her. She froze. What? He stepped closer, voice a whisper of steel. You're hiding. There's a difference. Allegra whirled around, eyes blazing. Don't psychoanalyze me. You're not my bodyguard anymore. Right, he said, with a faint smirk. You fired me after I took a bullet for you. The memory hit like a punch, blood on silk, the sound of gunfire in Marrakech, his body crumpling over hers. Her screams. Her voice softened. Why did you do it? His gaze met hers, unwavering. Because I loved you. Everything fell silent again, jungle, villa, heartbeat. But before she could speak, a rustle in the leaves made him whip his head around. He moved like a panther, body tense. What is it? She asked, breathless. He held up a hand, motioning for quiet. Movement. South Ridge. She froze. You said no one would find me here. I said I'd try, he replied, already pulling a small weapon from a drawer near the deck. Suddenly, the danger wasn't just metaphorical anymore. The villa, paradise hours ago, now felt like a glass cage dangling over the abyss. Kai turned to her, eyes locked. If you want me to protect you, say it. Allegra's voice caught in her throat. This wasn't about her father. Or Lucien. Or the paparazzi. This was about him. I want you to protect me, she said finally. He nodded once, like a contract had been sealed. Then we start now, Kai said. Stay inside. Lock the doors. And just like that, he vanished into the jungle, gun in hand. And Allegra. She stood at the glass, watching him disappear into the shadows, her heart thundering, her past catching up, and her old forbidden love stalking the trees like a ghost made flesh. Chapter 4, The Past Isn't Dead. The jungle swallowed him. Allegra pressed her palm to the cool glass of the villa's window, watching until Kai's figure disappeared completely into the lush green beyond. Even now, years later, with the world spinning wildly off its axis, he still moved like a shadow, silent, powerful, untouchable. Her pulse finally slowed, just enough to think. Just enough to remember. And just like that. Marrakech. The memory slammed into her like a thunderclap. It was 3 years ago. A heat wave scorched the Moroccan skyline, and the air smelled like spice, sweat, and danger. Allegra had just turned 23, and her father had sent her on a philanthropy tour through North Africa. In reality, it was a PR maneuver to distract the press from a rumored scandal about insider trading. She'd rolled her eyes but gone anyway. She never expected to fall in love with the man assigned to protect her. Kai Wolfe was 29 then. A former special ops soldier, now head of her private security detail. He rarely spoke unless it was necessary. He wore black in the desert heat. He always had one hand near his weapon and another blocking the sun from his eyes. And every time she looked at him, her stomach coiled like it knew something her heart wasn't ready to admit. It happened on the last night of the trip. The Moreau Foundation had hosted a gala at a historic riad, the air thick with perfume and politics. Allegra wore a red silk gown that clung to her like a secret. She remembered catching Kai's eyes across the courtyard just once, just a flicker of something wild and forbidden behind his cool exterior. Then came the chaos. Screams. Gunshots. A kidnapping attempt, well planned, well armed. One of her father's enemies, angry over a land dispute, had sent mercenaries to make a statement. She didn't see the first man with the knife. But Kai did. She still remembered the sound of his voice, sharp, terrifying, down, Allegra. She hit the ground seconds before the gunfire began. He fought like he'd been born for war. She saw it in flashes: blood, movement, steel. He took down 3 men. Shielded her with his own body. Dragged her behind a marble pillar when more reinforcements came. Then she saw the blood. He'd been shot. High in the ribs. Bleeding fast. But still, he held her. Still, he whispered, "You're safe. I've got you." Allegra had never cried in front of a man before that night. Not even as a child. But she did then. Pressed against Kai's chest, the air heavy with smoke and death, she sobbed into the crook of his neck. He winced. "Hey. You're okay." "No," she whispered. "You're not." They locked eyes. Something shifted. And then, against every rule, every instinct, every commandment of bodyguards and billionaires, she kissed him. Soft, desperate, electric. His hands trembled against her waist, his lips slow to respond, but when they did, it was nothing short of devastation. Fire and sin and unspoken things. A kiss that wasn't meant to happen. A kiss that rewrote everything. And then, just like that, he pulled away. "No," he said. "I can't. Kai." He pressed his blood-stained fingers to her lips. "You'll hate me for this one day. But I'm already gone." And then he was. By the time she woke in a hospital suite the next morning, he had vanished. No goodbye. No explanation. Just silence. The Moreau family replaced him within a week and buried the story. The world moved on. But she never did. Back in the villa, Allegra moved to the edge of the bed and sank down slowly, her chest heaving. The past wasn't just haunting her, it had caught up. It wore Kai's face and whispered things in the dark she still didn't know how to face. She looked around at the villa, his villa, and felt the weight of what they'd once been and what they could never be again. She still felt the heat of that kiss. She still remembered the bullet hole in his shirt. But more than anything, she remembered the one truth she hadn't been able to shake in 3 years. Kai Wolfe was the only man who ever made her feel safe. And he was also the one who hurt her the most. And now, he was back. Not just back, but more dangerous. More powerful. More impossible than ever. Outside, the jungle rustled again. She saw movement. Kai emerged from the trees, face unreadable, shirt damp with sweat, eyes scanning the horizon. He walked through the open deck doors like a ghost returning to his own grave. "All clear," he said. "For now." She met his eyes. But nothing was clear anymore. Not the danger. Not the plan. And certainly not the feelings that still burned like wildfire under her skin. Chapter 5, Enemies in Paradise. Allegra woke with a gasp. She sat bolt upright in the canopy bed, drenched in sweat, her silk camisole clinging to her skin. The villa was quiet except for the rhythmic hush of the ocean below, waves crashing softly against the cove like a lullaby too gentle for the storm inside her chest. She'd dreamt of the wedding. No, not the wedding. The trap. Lucien at the altar, holding the ring like a blade. Her father watching with a satisfied smirk, like a general sealing a business deal. The guests frozen, faceless, voiceless, clapping politely while her hands bled beneath lace gloves. And then, Kai. Always Kai. He appeared just as she turned to flee, his voice cutting through the crowd like a flare. "You don't have to do this." But this time in the dream, she couldn't move. Couldn't run. She was trapped in her own life, her own body. She threw off the covers, her breath ragged. She wasn't safe. Not here. Not even in this paradise. And it wasn't the paparazzi or the press or the fallout from fleeing the altar. It wasn't even Lucien's looming wrath. It was them. Her family. The Moreaus never forgot a betrayal. When Allegra was 8, she accidentally told a dinner guest that her mother drank gin in the mornings. Her father grounded her for a month and replaced her nanny with a private surveillance team. When she was 15 and tried to apply to university in New York on her own, her father cancelled the application and told the admissions board she had a history of instability. And now, she'd run. In front of the world. In a $200,000 wedding gown. She hadn't just embarrassed them, she'd defied them. They'd come for her. Not with love. Not with reason. With control. With leverage. With power. And there was only one person on the planet who had ever, truly, kept her safe from them. She found him on the villa deck at dawn. Kai was shirtless, doing pull-ups on a branch of the villa's overhead frame. His back glistened with sweat, muscles carved from years of war and shadows, a silver scar just beneath his ribs, the one from Marrakech, catching the morning light. He saw her and dropped to the ground in a fluid motion. Picked up a towel. Wiped his hands. Said nothing. "You're still here," she said, voice hoarse. "I said I wouldn't leave." She walked slowly toward him, the hem of her robe brushing her ankles like whispers. "I want to hire you," she said, chin lifting. Kai arched a brow. "You already did." "No," she corrected. "Not for a ride. Not for a favor. I want full protection. 24/7. As long as I need it." He studied her, his eyes unreadable. "Who's the threat?" "My father," she said flatly. "And Lucien. And anyone they send." He folded his arms across his chest. "You think they'd risk a public scandal by coming after you here?" She gave a hollow laugh. "Kai, the Moreaus don't care about public scandal. They invented it. And Lucien doesn't care about headlines. He only cares about revenge." Kai looked away, jaw tight. Allegra moved closer. "I know you're not just some ex-mercenary with a jungle villa and a dark past anymore. You run Wolfe Global. You're a security mogul now. I saw the Forbes article. So I know how expensive your time is." He turned to her slowly. "Do you think this is about money?" "No," she whispered. "I think this is about something we never finished." The air between them pulsed. Then Kai stepped away. "You're not thinking clearly," he muttered. "I'm thinking clearly for the first time in years." "You don't know what you're asking." "I'm asking for you to protect me," she said. "Not because I'm helpless. But because I don't want to die in a cage built by the people who claim to love me." He turned back to her. Their eyes locked. Something shifted. He saw it. The fear she tried to bury. The rage she'd never voiced. The fire. Kai exhaled slowly. "Fine." She blinked. "What?" "You want full protection. You've got it. Bodyguard. Intelligence. Surveillance. Discretion. No strings. But I'm in charge. You follow my rules." Allegra gave a half smile, triumphant and trembling all at once. "Deal." He didn't smile back. "I need to call in some favors," he said, already moving. "You'll need burner phones. I want your laptop wiped. Your villa will be refitted with biometric locks by nightfall. She followed him, trying to keep up with the sudden shift into command mode. Kai. He paused at the threshold. I'm not the girl you knew 3 years ago, she said quietly. He looked back at her, eyes dark with something unreadable. No, he said. You're more dangerous now. Then he disappeared into the villa, already issuing orders to someone on a secure line, leaving Allegra standing in the morning light, barefoot, heart thudding, and more terrified than ever. Because this time, she wasn't just running. She was preparing for war. Chapter 6, The Deal. By mid-afternoon, the villa had transformed. Drones now circled overhead at irregular intervals. New biometric locks were installed on every entry point, keyed only to Kai's voice and Allegra's retina scan. A security grid, visible only through a thermal lens, wrapped the perimeter in silent electric pulses. The entire island was suddenly an invisible fortress, cloaked in heat and vines. Allegra sat barefoot on the deck, her legs curled beneath her, sipping from a tall glass of lime and crushed mint. It was too warm to feel real. Too quiet to be safe. Inside, Kai was on his third encrypted call in the last hour, pacing the villa barefoot, speaking in clipped phrases like Alpha Protocol, location lockdown and satellite handoff in 36 hours. It was maddening how easily he shifted between Shadow Warrior and Stoic CEO. She wondered if he even remembered what it was like to live like a normal human. To feel anything without strategy. She certainly hadn't. Not since that kiss. Not since he left. And now he was here, again, building a glass fortress around her body, while keeping his heart buried under titanium walls. When he finally stepped outside, shirtless again and sun-kissed from the heat, he handed her a black tablet. Everything's set, he said. No one can trace you here. Not even your father's private network. Allegra looked up at him, her voice cool. So I'm officially in hiding. You're under protection, he corrected. There's a difference. Right, she said, voice dry. One sounds slightly more expensive. He didn't rise to the bait. She set down her drink. So how does this work, exactly? Am I your client, your prisoner, or your charity case? He sighed, looking down at the jungle. Neither, he said finally. You're my responsibility. For 2 weeks. Her throat tightened. 2 weeks. Kai nodded. That's all I'm offering. She blinked. Why limit? Because I don't babysit billionaires' daughters. I run a global firm with military contracts in 12 countries. And yet here you are, she shot back, her temper flaring. He turned to her slowly, his eyes dark and unreadable. Don't mistake this for something it's not, he said. I'll keep you alive. I'll make sure no one touches you. But this, he gestured vaguely between them. This is professional. Allegra forced a smile. You're saying we can work together, and pretend nothing happened. He didn't flinch. I'm saying, he said slowly, I won't touch you again. Not while you're under my protection. Her heart stung like it had been sliced open. She nodded once, sharply, as if the movement could seal the wound. Understood. Kai stared at her for a long, hot moment, his jaw locked tight like he wanted to say something else. But he didn't. Instead, he walked back inside and slid the doors shut behind him. Leaving Allegra alone with the sea breeze, the drone of insects, and a heart that refused to obey contracts. That night, the stars exploded across the sky like scattered diamonds. Allegra stood alone on the deck in one of Kai's button-down shirts, the tails of it brushing her thighs, her hair still damp from a late swim. The villa lights were low. Her tablet blinked softly beside her, a secure inbox, empty. No word from her family. No word from Lucien. But she knew the silence was a lie. She felt it in her bones, something was coming. Behind her, Kai stepped out of the shadows with 2 mugs of tea. He handed one to her without a word. Their fingers brushed. Electricity. Chamomile, he muttered. Helps with nightmares. Allegra stared into the steam. Do you ever sleep? When I can. Do you ever feel safe? He hesitated. No. She looked up. Then why do this? Because if I didn't, you'd be dead already. They stood in silence, the jungle humming around them, the air thick with secrets and restraint. Allegra glanced sideways at him. I can't pretend nothing happened, she whispered. Between us. You have to, he said without looking at her. For 2 weeks. And after that. His voice dropped. We don't talk about after. The stars above them pulsed brighter. The air felt like it might shatter. And still, they stood apart. Not touching. Not confessing. Bound by a 2-week contract forged from necessity. And laced with 1,000 things neither of them dared say.
Thanks for listening to Billionaire Romance Stories, where love meets luxury in the most unexpected places. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. We love hearing your favorite twists and wild theories. And don't forget to ring that bell, because in this world of yachts, secrets, and steamy romance, the next story is always one scandal away.